So usually you have three little dots at the top.
It acts like, I guess. I don't know what they messed up because it says that we're live. We have 12 viewers and no video, no the clip didn't play. Well, guys, apparently we are live. And I don't know what's going on. At one point it said we were live, but the intro didn't play. And thought about it.
I don't know. We're having a bad lunar thingy.
I hope this is no indication on how the rest of the show is going to be. And apparently they made an update too that's making it even more difficult for Android people because it says to tap the three dots and there's no three dots. Gotta love it. Anyway, tonight, so a couple weeks ago, I went to the Alabama Game Breeders Association's annual meeting, and they have a poultry show there. And Dwayne, who's going to be our guest once he gets through his technical problems,
Maybe.
he is a he and I both are UGBA judges, but he wound up judging the show while he was there. And I think Monique was there. She was a judge. And being in the crowd, I heard a lot of stuff that people said. And some folks didn't like how they were judged and things like that. And, you know, that sparked a conversation between Dwayne and I. And we find out a lot of people didn't even know that there was a standard available. And there was a lot about showing birds that they did not know. So, you know, I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? So what we're going to do is tonight's show, we're going to talk about preparing your bird for a show and show it. And, you know, that way in the future we can reference people because a lot of folks don't want to ask questions because, you know, they're like, oh, I don't want to be stupid or whatever, which by all means tonight's the time to ask your question. I have the show standards with me. I have a hard copy where I can look stuff up. They are available at UGBA's website to purchase. And I'm also, once we get him connected, we're going to let him reference the book. And, you know, you'll be able to ask questions and things like that. But in the book, it tells you everything that it should, you know, how the size the bird should be, type, conformation, all that good stuff. Now it finally let Dwayne in. So we're going to get him.
Dwayne, turn your phone sideways. Can you hear us?
I don't know.
How about that?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Turn your phone sideways. Trust me. Yeah,
Ooh, now,
we're better. There we go.
man, that's right there. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So, Dwayne, I was telling everybody what brought up this topic was that we were both at the Alabama show a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of folks that were upset at how they were judged because they didn't realize that there was a standard, and a lot of folks that had never shown before, they didn't know what to do. So I figured we do this show. We'll talk about understanding it, prepping birds for a show, what to do, all that good stuff. And hopefully people will either know or they will be able to see and, they won't be nervous about asking questions. Hopefully. So you have been a judge for a few years now.
Yeah, about 4.
You've been showing poultry for a while.
Right.
So let's walk through what you would do as a person showing your birds, how you prepare, what folks could think about, what do you do to get ready for a show? And don't tell us you pick them up off the yard, throw them in a box, and get in the truck and go. I mean, we want to know what goes into it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. But I can barely hear y'all. But anyway, I'll go out. I'll go through the yard. First of all, I like to walk around, just look for confirmation. You want to make sure the head's nice and red, make sure the feather quality is good, make sure everything is where it should be. That's first. Then I take them out. I do a visual inspection first. Then I go back, pull the birds out, go over their body, check for pin feathers, check for broken feathers in the hackle, check for broken feathers in the wings and the tail, make sure the feet are all clean, make sure they're all straight, make sure there's no distortion in the scale, make sure there's no scaly leg, none of that kind of stuff. Make sure the spurs are nice and clean. If the spurs are too long, I trim them off because, they need to be trimmed. It's not for a show aesthetic, but it's just for safety because, you can have a handler that knows absolutely nothing about that bird. It's going to take him out of the dropout bin, pick him up. The judge is going to pick him up and be handling him. And it's very easy for them to shift your legs around or kind of rustle around your hand or something. One of those sharp birds cut your arm or either you get hit trying to get him out of the pen. And just make sure their overall health is good, and take them from there and make sure they're not too heavy, make sure they're not too light. Our standards is 4 to 6 pounds. If they're under 4.2, there can be point. If they're over 6 pounds, there can be point. So that's the first thing I do is I do a visual inspection and I do a hands-on inspection to make sure they're at the par. And it ain't always the first one you pull out that you take either.
So when you say type and confirmation and all that kind of stuff, what is that?
Well, you want the breast to be nice and round, full. You want the back to be wide. You don't want the back to taper off the tail too sharp. You don't want a bird with a big full breast and a little narrow back.
Right.
You want a bird that's got perfect tail. You don't want rye tail. You don't want squirrel tail. You don't want a split tail. You want to make sure when you open those wings up, that wing snaps back to the body. When you pull that wing out, turn it loose, it needs to snap back to the body. You don't want to just hold the wing out, flag the wing down, lazy and tired. You want to make sure all the feathers are in good shape. Make sure none of the tips on the wing feathers are broken. Make sure you got all the toenails it needs to have.
That is important.
It is important, yeah. Everything like that is a deduction, or some of those forms can be like a rye tail. Is one thing, but a squirrel tail on American bird can be a disqualification.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't normally think about. I mean, I wouldn't, that would get you disqualified. What are some of the things on the DQ list?
Well, first of all, the most important thing is just like that meeting in Alabama, and it happens from time to time, but there were several birds that were brought there to show that had mites. They had living mites on them. And, if they got mites on, that's automatic disqualification. We disqualify them automatically because not only is it going to affect that bird, it could possibly pass on to birds around it that's that's in the same category or class with it. But you don't want roachback. Roachback, that's a hump in the back. If they got a hump in their back, the back's not flat, big hump in their back, that's roachback. That can be a disqualification.
Yeah.
And the beak, you want the beak to be uniform. You don't want it to be like a parrot beak on an American bird. It's okay on ACF, but they had real short parrot beaks anyway. But the American birds, you want a regular beak on them. You don't want split beak or no crack in the beak, and you don't want it crooked or scissor beak. That's the disqualification also. But then as far as a blind bird, a bird that's blind is a disqualification. In an American bird, and it's at the discretion of the judge a lot of times, because you can tell the difference in a bird who is lazy and lays on the perch pole, and they'll have a divot in their breast from that perch pole. You knock a couple of points off. But a bird that has their breastbone is maybe kind of lays over to one side, crooked, it's a genetic deficiency. That's especially in Orientals, that's a disqualification right away. And and then other things like in Alabama, they did not disqualify birds in Alabama for having a comb, but in the UGBA standards, if the bird has comb, if it's comb and wattles and ears not being dubbed, that's a disqualification. Now the guys that was the master judge in Alabama, he told me that he was going to allow it at that meeting, but it was going to be automatic 5-point deduction. So we had to deduct 5 points for all those birds that had combs on them. And then, web foot or duck foot, web feet, that's a disqualification. And another thing is, a lot of people don't think about it as a disqualification, but if you take that bird out and he hacks up, and it hacks up, and that's a showing of a lack of courage. And in gamefowl, when they hack up and show that lack of courage, that's automatic disqualification. So you don't want to take a bird you caught out the tree last night and bring him to the meeting or bring him to a show and try to show him, and then as soon as somebody picks him up out of the pen, he goes crazy as he can be and hacks all up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the bird per se, but it's just he's scared. Get the bird out and handle him so he ain't used to people. Put him on a cord. Put him close to your feed rail. Walk around him a lot. Let him know you ain't there to cut his head off. And and then if they're missing spurs, our standards says if they're missing one spur, it's a deduction. If they're missing both spurs, it's a qualification. And then you look at the tail. If it's got split tail, squirrel tail, or rye tail, squirrel tail on American birds, if the tail goes towards the back, greater than 45 degrees, and if he's got a weary tail or rye tail, tail lays over to the side. And see, as a judge, you kind of got to watch, because when you're looking at that bird for conformation in that cage, a bird might have a tail like a sweater or something like that. It has great big tails. If there's as much wind that day, you got to watch that bird walk around a minute, because some judges will say, well, that bird's got rye tail, but he don't. It's just the wind's catching that tail's catching that wind like a sail and it's blowing it over. And you got to look for that kind of thing. So a lot of it is at the discretion of the judge. And, you know, a person who only likes hatch chickens and only wants to deal with hatch chickens is going to have a hard time judging ACL, judging grade or spangled, because that's not his forte. Same thing with a person
Right.
who only has Oriental, going to have a hard time judging American.
That makes sense.
That's,
Might be a little partial.
yeah, well, and then like I said, I think it's either 4.2 or 4.8 on the cocks, and 4.2 or 4. I think it might be 4.8. 4.8 to 6 pounds on the cocks, and then on hens they need to be between 3.8 and 4.8. That's the standard weights, and then you deduct 1 point for every 8 ounces over the standard if they're over the standard. So that's why, you know, have a set of scales so you can weigh your bird before you go. Some poultry shows don't weigh them, some do. It just depends.
Now, for the cock birds, it's 4 pounds, 8 ounces to 6 pounds.
I thought it was easy. I knew it was, I'm going from memory. You know?
Yeah. And hens is 3 pounds, 8 ounces to 4 pounds, 8 ounces.
Yeah, I got some that's overweight.
I mean, probably everybody does.
You know, people they can bring a pretty pullet. You can have a pullet that's got her fresh feathers, you know, got her fresh feathers this year, and it's December coming up. You got meat. That pullet is beautiful. You got a hen over there that's not quite finished with the molt yet. But I'll be honest with you, man. It's really difficult. You go by the standards to bring a pullet and have a pullet's body compete with a hen body. Even if you got a little bit of deduction for feather issues, it's hard for a pullet to hen. She's got to be exception to beat a hen. If the hen's feathered out any at all, like she ought to be, it's almost impossible. And then, you know, a lot of people don't have birds molded out this time of year, and they'll bring stags and pullets they fresh skin because they are feathered out.
Yeah. And that's
The rooster I
smart.
took to Alabama, he's only 17 months old, and he went through his first molt this year, and I took him there, and he there was a guy there. He told me, he said they had a lot of problems in Alabama with feather mites, and he said, "What do you put on?" He said, "Yeah, rooster feathers look great." He said, "What do you put on it for feather mites?" I don't put nothing on it. I said, "It ain't got nothing to do with what you put on. You got to do what you put in. Get it off of it. Even healthy." But I think you know, people in general come to the show, and the first thing people need to remember here is the judges don't get paid. In South Carolina, North Carolina, those states, I think they pay the judges in California. But you know, I went to Alabama with no intentions of judging a poultry show, just to show my bird, talk to some people, give them some information about the UGBA, and enjoy myself, hang out with you, some other people. And you know, I got asked to judge because it was taking a little longer than they anticipated. And they had, you know, more birds, and they only had one judge. So it was going to take longer than anticipated. Get them all judged. So you know, I jumped in and helped.
Well, I mean, the camaraderie and stuff is what it's all about.
But I mean, it's a job. Everybody wants to criticize what. Everybody's ready to criticize what judges do, and I tell them all the time, if you ain't happy with what I did, get you a standard book, take this test, and you can have my spot. I'll give it up to you.
That's right.
Stuff.
Is missing a main tail feather a DQ?
No. When you have feathers missing, it depends on, like, that goes under the plumage category, and you know, you like, if they have twisted feathers, there's a point each for that twisted feathers. If they have, you know, lack of luster, that's a deduction.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want a good break in between the tail and the back, and you got to have that. Like when you lose a point for every broken feather. So if it's got if sickle feather is intact, but it's broke on the end, take off half. If one of the tail feathers, when you open that tail up, if it's got 7 feathers on the left, you want 7 feathers on the right. And if it's missing one of those feathers, it's not a disqualification, but you're gonna lose a point that feather.
Yeah, they need to be balanced for a lot of
Same
reasons.
with the wing feathers.
Right. Let's see, another question we have says, I fought a long time with the standard judges at meetings here to not dub Oriental fowl due to their culture. Do you see many say Thai types at shows?
Yeah, we do. We see some Japs, Oriental, that kind of thing. And on the UGBA standard, if it's an ACL rooster or an Oriental rooster, Jap, ACL, any of that kind of stuff, if they're dubbed, it's automatic disqualification. ACL have to have the tone. Orientals have to have the tone intact in order to be judged. If they've been dubbed, you have 2 options. You either have to show it against an American fowl and call it something it ain't, or you take a disqualification.
And there again, that goes to knowing the standard and knowing what you got.
Yeah, it's
Because
simple, Terry. All strains of American fowl must be dubbed. And
So,
and all
I was at the Ohio
when they show
National.
the Oriental class, there was a rooster in Alabama. He was a nice ACL rooster. I disqualified him because he told me.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I was at the Ohio National this past week, and they had a good mini game fowl there, and that was nice to see. But I noticed that on the coop tags, I mean, some of them weren't called what they were, and that, I mean, I don't really know why somebody would want to do that. I think maybe it's because perhaps some of them didn't know what they had.
Well, Terry, it's like if you go to Cackle Hatchery, if you go on the Cackle Hatchery website, they'll have red quills on there available, but they won't call them red quills. I think they call them jink. And then they'll have like a butcher Kelso type fowl. They call them wheat. And they just named the game fowl the same thing they're called like in Bantam. You'll have, instead of calling them doms, I don't even know what they call it. It's
I mean, they're calling them more the color.
Kookaroo, something like that. Same thing they call them in the Bantam class. But they're trying to make it more socially acceptable to keep the habit being. They call the butcher, Kelso, the animal rifle, back selling game. So some of these poultry shows that are non-game fowl sanctioned, they put other have more pictures. I've seen it before.
No,
That breed standard for $25 or $28 on the website. Or you can give state job president today. Good job, me. I can mail you one. I think we mail them out for $25. It's a good thing to have. I tell you, man, once you get a standard, study that standard and understand it, it helps you in your breed being too. Just because you start breeding for more conformation and overall quality.
I mean that's important.
It is.
It's really hard to breed for something when you don't know what you're breeding for. But if you know what your goals are and you know what you're looking for, once you figure out where you're going, You just got to figure out how to get there.
Give show word. We have about 6 poultry shows. I think most of them the same. I think Alabama got that one. I guess scheduled for later on. But you know, like if you go to a UGBA show, same. You ain't just showing your bird there, just to show the bird. You get a certificate through that certificate. You got a copy of that certificate, Gary?
Which one?
The certificate.
Let me see if I can find it. I should have it on my computer here.
You see that?
Yeah, there you go.
It's got a time and a date, class you showed in, when you showed, and it'll have the judge's signature on it, president's signature on it, secretary's signature on it, and you know, later on when the animal control comes up, wants to know why your birds are dubbed or why they're trimmed, and you could get your standard book out, show your standard book, stack of certificates you got, a few ribbons, and you've just given yourself a legal means to have birds been dubbed, have birds ready to be shown for hope. Because it's all in our standard.
I mean,
it's not just
makes
it's not
sense.
just a state publication. It's a national publication. It's good for the whole United States.
Let's see. How do you check fat?
Well, for me, the easiest way to check back your pelvis bone, where the two pelvis bones are. And if them pelvis bones rounded off, like rubbing the end of your thumb, that bird's gonna be pretty fat. If that pelvis bone is kind of sharp, got some crisp edges on it, then you can go right in front of the pelvis bone. You know what you're feeling for. Pinch right in there, and you feel that gut back. It'll feel like it'll feel thick, real thick in there and marble. But the easiest way to check for excessive fat is to check where the pelvis is, that back, right below the vent.
Yeah, that's the way I check them too.
Like I said, if it feels like you're rubbing the edge of your thumb, and that pelvis bone is rounded up, that means it's coated with something. It's coated with fat.
Yeah,
That's
if it's
how
soft and
Jeff
if it's soft and round, if it's soft and round, they're fat, and that's for me. That's the easiest way, with the least amount of discomfort to the bird, right? To check the pelvic bones. Squeezing their gut to try and decide if they got fat or not is difficult, and it takes a trained hand to really get to figure that out. And there's too many things I can damage by squeezing that gut in the abdomen that I don't want to mess with it. But that's just me.
If you squeeze it too hard, and you squeeze hard enough to pinch off one of the part of the intestine or something, it's causing a problem to have a blockage later on. Trauma.
Yeah.
So that's how I check. Take the pelvis bone, rub that pelvis bone. You'll feel it. I mean, like I said, and Jeff, you may not that. I mean, it really on a fat bird, it feels like you're rubbing the edge of your thumb. If you take your index finger and lay on the edge of your thumb and roll it back and forth, that's what a fat bird feels like.
That's really fat. That's really fat. So
Yeah.
I tell people to get a ballpoint pen, and you push on the tip without the ink, have it retracted, but when you push on the end of a ballpoint pen, that's what that pelvic bone should feel like through that skin, right? And that's, then there's really no fat on them at that point. I mean, a little bit of rounding is one thing, but if they get to be, rounded over like a Q-tip, or like you talked about, the tip of your thumb, that's pretty fat. So, have you ever, have you caught anybody cheating or altering the appearance of their birds during any of the shows?
Not much. I mean, you know, you'll have people who will, they try to, we don't really have a class for stags. Stags or cocks, they're all showing the same class. But, you know, I've seen people try to take it and sand down the rooster's fur and take a potato and punch a hole in the potato, put the potato on the rooster's fur, and let that potato juice dry on his fur, and it'll kind of slough off like a stag's fur will slough off, versus, you know, trying to save you a stag is actually a problem. But as far as cheating, there's not much way to cheat. I mean, not with the standards. I mean, because there's nothing anybody can do to change the bird, you know, and they can't make plumage grow, and they, you know, I get birds sometimes. It's they take witch hazel or like something like that. And they'll try to whack them down to make the feathers have more luster to them, some baby oil or something like that. But I mean, you know, that's not so. I'm looking more for broken feathers, or you know, having one tip larger, you know, one tip be larger than the other, one tip not set quite on the body like the other tip. Tail feathers being the uniformity in the tail feathers, uniformity in the wing feathers, the clearness of the eyes. You know, even like I've seen chickens like they'll have a red eye on one side and green eye on the other side. You know, that's a 1-point deduction because the eyes are not the same color. So there's not really a whole lot of way to check the cheek. I mean, I've seen people use like crazy glue on the cracked beak and try to get by, but that's about as big as it for me.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
They're crazy.
I've heard of people trying to do that.
They'll take a crack and the big crazy glue it and put sand it down good and clean and take some like a number 2 pencil or something like that, and try to make that crack go.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing I've seen. I have no idea why the problem is so much.
I don't know.
Gotta read that period. I can't read.
Time for a new
Dougie's-
phone there, boss.
Dougie said those certificates will help you if the idiots show up.
Yep, they will.
And I mean, you know,
some guys now, some guys recently, they didn't get caught doing anything illegal. They just had the birds, had them trimmed, came in and took the birds. But I mean, they were doing something illegal, they were selling drugs. They weren't doing anything illegal with the chicken. They took the chicken out of the stuff, and you know that's not right. Standard book says it. But these guys are members of the GBA, and they told me they never thought it was important to come to poultry shows, if that sort of thing. Since all this happened, they're all called one of the next week. Next opportunity to become a certificate, show their birds.
So is it a deduction if they don't trim them right? So if they're not dubbed right?
You know, like on the Bantams, if you look at a rooster's comb, there's a line, you know, right above your head. You can see that line comb. And in the Bantam class, that's acceptable. But you know, if it's much over a quarter of an inch tall, I deduct for it. And like when they trim the birds, if they leave more wattle on one side than the other, and the wattle ain't trimmed clean, the earlobes ain't trimmed clean, if they got saggy skin on one side, one side's tight, that's a deduction. If they leave that,
nobody wants saggy skin.
On a peacock rooster, they'll leave that little gun side on the end, right where the beak meets the comb, where the comb meets the beak. They'll leave that little rifle side on the end of the nose. That ain't a clean trim. We had one guy. He would bring his birds and show them, and he would cut the wattles and comb, but he never cut the earlobes. He said he didn't like them with the earlobes cut. he would bring them to show them every time. There was always a deduction. I went to him and told him why he could be deducted. He said it mattered to him. He was paying for certificate.
Well, I mean, if he's getting deducted for it, but he's still winning, he
Well,
must have some good looking birds.
he was coming for a certificate. He didn't care if he wanted a trophy or not. He just wanted that certificate so he could be.
I mean, some people just want a
Well, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
participation trophy.
That's still, well, he got the certificate, right? So he's got paperwork saying,
Yeah, he's
keeping birds for other reasons, right? And he's got some proof to show it.
Yep.
So you can't blame him for that, right? Jeremy says he agreed with you. Nobody likes saggy skin.
Yeah, I mean,
what did I say?
Nobody likes saggy skin.
Carrie said, when you were talking about trimming the wattles and they don't trim them right and keep them even, nobody likes saggy skin. So Dwayne, because I see all kinds of different station, right? You see highs, you see mediums, you see medium highs, where's the standard at for station? Are you judging station?
The standard is about, the main thing the standard for is overall health. And you may have a sweaters are not, you'll have, and see our categories like black breastfed, dark leg, black breastfed, light leg. And in that light leg class, you'll have a round kid, which will be a shorter legged rooster. And the biggest thing is, people don't understand what station is. Station is not the length of the leg, first of all, and it's the placement of where the leg and the wing meet. And a high station bird will be a flatter back bird. You'll be a more flatter back with the drum will come out more close to the top of the wing, where a low station bird can come out where you can stand up straighter like an HC, where his leg comes out closer to the wing tip. And that where that leg comes out, the wing, that's where the station is determined. And but I mean, standard, I can look back on the thing, but it's not really nothing much on station. I mean, it's just as long as they got two good legs and the muscle tone's good. Honestly, I don't really care where it comes out on the wing, because like I said, you're judging round heads, kelsos, sweaters, all in that light leg red class. The black breastfed light leg class. They're all there's multiple types of birds in the same class. So same thing with house bird. You have a blue-faced bird, and a blue-faced bird he won't carry himself like a penny or a leaf in the green leg class. So as far as station goes, I mean, it really does. As long as they don't have no crooked toes, and as long as they don't have no extra spurs or missing spurs or really thin thighs, and as long as they're not bow-legged, they call it most people call it bow-legged, but bow-legged, that's you got the spraddle-legged rooster. You can show it. Folks show you're gonna lose 3 points just for his legs being spraddle-legged.
For spraddle-legged or bow-legged, or either?
Bow-legged, spraddle-legged, it's the same.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically
Well,
the same.
So what about knock-kneed? What do you do if the knees are too close?
I mean,
all right.
Yeah,
it's a deduction.
Most things are 2 to 3 point deduction. You want that. Everybody, and like I said, some people are more critical over certain points. Like for me, I'm real critical over the head. I like a nice head, good shape of the beak, nice round eyes, clear eyes. No cloudiness, no distortion in them, and then some species of birds, some families of birds have rougher scalage on their legs than others. it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just how the birds are. I think it's I can't remember exactly what it was. And see, the thing is there's just so much in standard book that you have to go by, and it's everything. And I'm telling you, it's a lot of pages, and because not need is a defect. It's a defect in the bird, and spraddle-legged, not need is when they stand on the ground. If your hip where the scaly part of their leg hits the feathers, if that's touching together, inside touching together, that's not need. But a spraddle-legged rooster, he'll be spread out real wide, and there's a difference in it. But they're both a deduction. I take one as the other. They both do the point. Either way. You like straight legs. You want to hold that bird in the breast, let his feet hang straight down. They should hang straight down. We like to, most people don't understand when they come and bring their birds that, like we had one guy, he brought his birds and he brought them up to get tested. We had to test for podium typhoid. And our poultry shows are certified through the state. We had to get a certificate from Clemson University out of South Carolina, and through the state vet. And he brought his bird up and he had muffs, break muffs on. And I asked him, I said, why you got muffs on that rooster? He said, well, he's a little spirited. I said, well, you had to put muffs on your brain for blood testing? I said, you better save your money. I said, that you can't show him with those muffs on. And when I go to get him out, I drop out, and if he hits me, I'm disqualified. I said, because man fighters disqualification. And he said, I'm just going to keep him on him until it's time to show. And he said, I'll have to calm down by then. But see, I would never even brought a bird like that, because that's just, you're risking yourself. You're risking him getting away from you, show, hurting somebody else. And
he's got a little stage anxiety.
Yeah, and there's kids there. You need to bring a bird that's going to be safe for
Yeah.
kids to pick up. Some people don't spend.
I mean, yeah,
much time
because
around firearms like I do.
with the birds being in drop pens where they're judging them, kids walk around there all the time. And if a kid tripped, knocked one of the pens over, and you had a man fighter in there, that could be bad for that kid. And that would not be good.
Sometimes like in the kids class I've been to poultry shows before, and they actually give kid points for handling, and they make the kid take the bird they're showing in and out of dropout pen, hand him off to the judge to judge their handling skill. Because I mean, half these kids come to the poultry show, they just rode with daddy there, and daddy's trying to get them a trophy, and they ain't out there throwing their feet.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, at the show in Alabama, the girl that won all around, you can tell that girl throws some feed. And boy, was she excited when she won a trophy that was taller than she was, and $500 in cash. And it was all she could do not to scream. And I think she did let out a couple of yelps. She was excited.
I thought she was going to bust.
And
I mean,
also,
she was like,
the little girl, there was a little blonde-headed girl there. I'm not going to say names for their own. They can say it. But that little girl won a couple of different things because she did bring a bunch of birds, and those were her birds. I mean, she was taking them out of the box and putting them in drop pens. Like she was real excited with all her trophies. It was a really good time for seeing that.
Birds.
No, I could believe that because they had several boxes.
So how many guys do you have show in Alabama?
There's probably about 85, 90 birds.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good showing. I
It's
wish we
quite a
had
bit.
that. I wish we had that at the Ohio National because we got to get more guys out there, right, in the public view. You know, at a bigger show like the Ohio National,
Mm-hmm.
we've got to get more recognition for the breed and get it accepted. You know, APA, right? It's one more step in preserving the breed, right? And if we don't do it, you know, the haters are just going to keep hating us, right? So we just
See, we have a state fair here, and we can show our birds at the state fair. They have a gamefowl category, but the only problem is those birds got to stay there like the whole time for the fair. So the birds are here for like 7 days, and you like
11
outside
days.
it, it's like an 11-day event.
Wow.
10, I think it's 8 or 10 days. 8, 10, I can't remember. But anyway, they, you know, I'm 2.5 hours one way from that fair. There's no way I can carry my birds up there and be 8 or 9 days, 10, 11 days worth of it. And I don't want to depend on, I don't want to leave them a dropout game that long for first thing. And then secondly, I don't want, you know, can't put a roost on it. They're going to be sleeping crap. And sitting there and their feathers going to look like garbage. And they'll have their tail feathers all broken up, everything. So, you know,
I mean, for that
you gotta
long, if they
depend on
don't have
someone
any
else to feed them.
DQs when it starts, they'll have a lot of points deducted by the time it's over from looking like crap.
yeah. I mean, in Ohio, they didn't have drop pens. They were in the regular poultry show pens, you know,
Yeah.
up off the ground, waist high. You know, so there aren't no drop pens there. It was,
And that one, you coop in on Friday. The show is like they do the judging Saturday, literally all day.
Yeah.
And the first awards was at 4 o'clock, I believe, Saturday afternoon, and then right after that, they did the rest of the awards on Sunday morning, and then coop out and go home.
and there's more of those poultry shows, not necessarily like the state fair where you have to leave them there for a whole week doing. So they,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, like I've
most
checked
of the
like into
states
some
have them.
APA shows, and
Yeah.
they don't even have an APA show in South Carolina at all.
Doesn't surprise me, but you know, there are some good ones around, right? There's going to be one like Knoxville, Tennessee coming up.
December the 6th.
Yeah, there's one out in I don't remember the name of it, but there's a good size show out in Oklahoma, right? And as big of a gamefowl state as Oklahoma is, you know, those guys really need to, you know, excuse my French, but they need to get off their ass and get birds in that show to start getting recognition, right?
That's the one
And
that's in Shawnee.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's a
supposed
big
to be
show.
that's a big show. That's supposed to be as big or pretty close to as the Ohio show. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to
From
get.
what I
We
heard,
have
some
6
years it's
we have 6 shows scheduled right now across South Carolina, and we spread it across the state to give people the opportunity to come to one or more shows without having to travel 3 to 4 hours. And you know, people are not going to. That's just simple. You have a certain few people that's in our membership who attend every show, no matter where it's at. And then you have some that only go to one in their area. They have come to ones in their area. They pay their membership. They pay their membership fee, and they join. They show at one show, and they don't go to another show the rest of the year. And that's fine. I understand. Everybody can't afford to travel. Everybody don't have a vehicle ready to go for 4 hours for poultry show. But you know, find one close to you, go to it,
Do something.
and you know, enter your bird. Because see, South Carolina, really, man, we have something in our state like Alabama. We have a good relationship with our state vet. If you come from another state to show your bird here, You come in, we show the bird, you buy a membership, show your bird, and we charge $10 for the first bird, $5 for every bird after that one. And that covers the testing. And shows, show supplies like trophies, stuff like that. And then it's not really a money making thing for us. But in South Carolina here, all we have to do is fill out out of state form. Like Kerry can bring in birds from Alabama, show them here. We fill out an out of state form, turn in our state vet, no problem. But like in North Carolina, their vet is a little different. If I want to take a bird to North Carolina to show him in a poultry show there, I have to take him to my vet here, have it tested for avian influenza, polio and typhoid within 20 days of the event, and show up at that event with the paperwork from my vet, clearing the bird to travel there to be shown. And if they have 5 shows a year and I want to attend 5 shows a year there, that's their 20 days apart. I have my vet 25 times. So, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, every state's going to be different, right? And it's just how their state veterinarian lab has it set up and what their rules are, So you're going to have that no matter where you go. But
And
See, our state vet here allows us to do our own blood testing. I got antigen in the refrigerator, and I'm NPIP. Me, my son, and 2 other guys we're NPIP certified, and we do our own blood testing, and we send in the results of our test to the vet. But like in other states, they send the vet out, and the vet does it. And
see, like in Alabama, we've got somebody from USDA that comes out.
Yeah.
I call it feds on the farm.
I would just,
I call it feds on the
what'd you
farm.
say?
Feds on the farm. That's
our state vet will come out. Our state vet comes out. Sometimes she'll come and attend. We invite her every time. She's welcome to come. And when she comes, she'll do a avian influenza swab. Like if you bring 5 birds, she'll check 1 bird. She don't check every bird. She don't have to. Brought 5, if one of them got it, y'all got it. So
yeah.
She comes and tests for avian influenza a couple times a year, couple of shows a year. She don't do it. Just people need to get the standard book. They need to understand. And the biggest thing is people show up all the time with undubbed roosters, try to show a Kelso rooster with comb on it. It's not allowed. And you try to tell people that, you put information out there, you let them know that, they still continue to show up with roosters with combs on, 2-inch long spurs.
it's going to take time to get people taught. So
Yeah.
Don't be in a hurry.
Nah, but like I said, and I'll be here happy to answer any questions. Anybody wants to contact me on Facebook, call me, or whatever else. I've answered questions all day today about poultry. Because I put out we have 5 shows scheduled. I put the list out on a couple different Facebook pages today, and I had one guy message me wondering why he had to have his bird tested. That's a simple answer. The state requires it. Any other questions?
See, like some folks, I just don't understand.
Here we have members that don't want to give us their address. They don't want to give us their address because they're afraid of the law. We're going to turn ours. We got a database the law has access to, and we send the law to their house.
I get it. I have people that order ShowPro by sending in a envelope with cash money in it and nothing but a P.O. box as address to send it to. I get it.
Yep.
But I want to say, I want to put, one day I'm going to put a letter in the bag and be like, look, man, it ain't that deep. But to some folks,
look, everybody's level of paranoia is different. So
Yeah, and I mean, I support it. You do you.
I had a guy message me wanting to know if I was interested in doing some trading for some chicken. And I said, depends on what you got to trade. I said, I don't bring any birds here. I said, I mean, might be trading for some hunting equipment, fishing equipment. I said, I don't trade for no chicken. And he said, well, I got a pew pew. Would you be interested in trading? I'm like, why don't you just say gun? Damn, I mean, everybody knows what a pew pew is.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, ain't like we're doing a drug deal.
Almost,
they probably
it's
wanted
close. It's close, but it ain't the same. Yeah.
they probably wanted a $500 chicken for a High Point or Jensen. Who was it that made the dirt cheap 22?
I think it was Jensen. Yeah.
Jensen, yeah.
Yes, maybe.
High Point made the really cheap 9mm.
Yeah.
Well, with them things, on the good side is when they do jam up, you can still defend yourself with it.
Yeah, they're really heavy. So,
yeah.
We got a couple questions, and we're going to wrap it up. So Dustin asked, "What about a rooster with different colored legs? Like if you get one, in his case, one white leg, one
the leg color, the different color leg doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter at all. As long as their eyes are the same color. The only differentiation the standard says, as far as color goes, is the eye color.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says anything about leg color.
Dougie asked, and I'll ask you guys, but I haven't. Has there been a confirmed case of bird flu in a gamefowl from a gamefowl farm? And I have not heard of one. I know they were hyping it in California when they were trying to push that bill, but I haven't heard of one. So
I can tell you this for sure, Jeff. We have 9 states in it's affiliated with UGBA, and those 9 states have all got documentation from their state vets that there's never been a case of gamefowl related avian influenza.
yeah, I didn't think so either, but
yeah, I haven't heard of any. And at one point, when I was talking with and working with some of the folks in California, I did some research on it, and I could not find anything with a confirmed case on gamefowl.
So we got a question that's off topic, right? And Julian wants to know what are our thoughts as far as breeding in the winter. Now, pretty sure he's down in Texas, and what are some of the things you might do for higher fertility? So either you want to give him some pointers.
Well, for me, in the wintertime, I have 2 incubators going instead of 4, but my hatcher still runs, and I'm getting great fertility. I have lights going. Lights come on now. They're coming on at 2 because they don't observe daylight savings time. The timer don't get changed at all unless the power goes out and it gets out of whack. But they get 15, 16 hours of daylight every day. And I have hens hatching as well this time of year. And I really like it because you can throw off some really good chicks in the wintertime, and they're going to be really vigorous and really strong as long as you feed them right. Because usually with chicks, the biggest thing is keeping them warm. So if you can do that in the wintertime, you're fine. In the summertime, chicks will actually get too hot if you don't control the environment. And that's worse on them because they'll get dehydrated. And a chick needs a lot of water and really good feed.
And I think a lot of guys just go to hatching in the spring because in most cases, the hen starts laying because of the longer days. They're late February, March. And she's been on break most of the fall, so, her spring eggs tend to be a little bit more stronger It's just easier for people to hatch in that, April, May timeframe, especially if they don't have a brooder and they don't have the facilities, right? If you don't have the incubator, you don't have the hatcher, you don't have a brooder, it can be challenging to try and hatch off in the middle of winter because you don't know when the rain's coming or a frost or whatever. But,
that is true.
As long as Julian, you feed them right and you have a good balanced feed. I mean, you have a really good top-notch feed. There's no reason why your fertility should be anything lower in the winter than any other time. So.
I've had some yard runs in hatchery, right? They were roosters. The roosters are all cord. They look like they've been around for 5 weeks. They were molt. I've always been told, during the molt, the temperature goes up and they don't, their fertility rate goes way down. But I've still had hens have 90% hatch rate run loose on the yard. Hatch, all these little bush monkeys out here in the summertime. And I was thinking, man, where's the fertility rate drop at?
So I had a brood pen of bugs, and they were all prime molt. I mean, I was raking out that pen just about every day, and I didn't even think, check the hen in the corner. She would just look at me like I was funny, but she was molting. She looked funny too, and she was also miserable. So I just thought she was sitting there being miserable. And then one day I was down there and I heard a bunch of little chirping noises as they're starting to get their feathers back. And there's like 8 little bees running around. I'm like, where did this no fertility in the molt, where'd this come from? Because that ain't what happening here.
Yeah. And weather swings a lot.
Yeah, but you got to feed them right? I mean, if you're not feeding them right to begin with, like anybody's fertility should be at least 80%, right? 80 to 90. Yeah. And if you're not hitting those numbers, there's something wrong with either how you're feeding them or how you're keeping them. So, I mean, that's bottom line is 80%, right? And anything under that is just not satisfactory. So, and I don't care how old that hen is. I get tired of hearing this BS about, I got this 10-year-old hen. She only gives me half a dozen eggs, whatever, right? I got guys with 10, 11, 12-year-old hens still hatching chicks, okay? If you take care of her, you don't let her get too fat, you feed her right, there ain't no reason why she can't hatch you out some chicks at, 9, 10 years old. So.
I had a rooster that was right at 15 years old, and he was still throwing out good fertility rates.
Again, if you keep their body condition right and you're feeding them right and you keep them in a good living condition, that should be, I hear a lot of 12 and 13-year-old roosters, but guys want to feed, whole corn and stupid stuff, and they wonder why they can't get a good fertility rate past like 5 or 6 years old. And
wait, scratch ain't a good feed?
What do you mean? You need some catfish food, you need some floating catfish food and some whole corn. That's all you need, right? And once a month you give them a little styrofoam. And on that note, we're going to call it a night.
We'll see y'all next week.
See ya.
Thank you, guys.
We would like to take a moment to thank our friends over at ShowPro Farm Supply for their generous sponsorship and support. Whether you're raising heritage poultry, show poultry, gamefowl, or other species of livestock, ShowPro offers custom formulated feeds and supplements to help your animals reach their full genetic potential. And they don't stop at livestock. They also carry Alumacoop's movable poultry housing, plus a full line of Fertrell farm and garden products, so your whole homestead gets what it needs to thrive. Check out ShowPro Farm Supply, where nutrition meets know-how.